Welcome back to another very short session where we are going to talk about personal and organizational communication in a little bit more detail. So maybe let's start with interpersonal communication. If you remember from the last lecture, we said that interpersonal communication is between two people. So interpersonal communication can be either formal or informal. Why do we say that? Because you could just talk to your friend and that would be interpersonal communication. I doubt you use formal language with your friend. That would be a little weird. And you could also talk to a colleague or a client or stakeholder, and that would then require formal type of communication. So when is it appropriate to use formal or informal communication in your opinion? In what instances? Maybe give us a scenario where you would need to use formal or informal communication. See if this was an actual class, then you would then give me a few examples there. Maybe it would help you to write down a few for yourself, just for your notes to be a little bit more informative. Okay, so another way that we can distinguish communication or interpersonal communication, it can be verbal. Okay, now verbal is a little bit diverse because the word verbal means words. So that is inclusive of written communication. However, for clarity's sake, we will keep verbal as spoken word. So verbal communication, which is a spoken word, non-verbal communication, which is body language. It could include pictures, signals, signs, emojis. We also have written communication, like we said, and listening. Listening is also a form of communication. Confusing, but no, not quite. So what is verbal communication in sport? And like I said, we will stick to spoken word as the only form of verbal communication. Okay, so it can be informal, which is often used between friends. And for this course in particular, we will focus on formal, which is between businesses or people in business. So verbal communication can be face-to-face, over a distance via a medium, online, like we're doing right now. It could also be, I don't know, WhatsApp call or something. Right, nonverbal communication, on the other hand, is the transmission of information without using words. Like I said, it could be body language, like facial expressions, gestures, paralinguistics, like how loud your voice is, the tone of your voice. You can tell what a person is trying to say just by the tone of their voice. It could be they sound sad, they sound excited, they sound devastated. That tone of voice is everything. Okay, body language, personal space, also, you know, how you can tell people in the relationship, personal space, you know, eye gaze, how a person will look you in the eye or not look you in the eye, for those that like to detect liars and so on. Touching and the way a person is dressed could also be a form of non-verbal communication. That's why they stress that you need to dress formally when you go to work so that people do not misunderstand you. So your appearance is also a way of communicating. Written communication. Now, this is very, very important, particularly for sport practitioners. We do a lot of writing. So this is the transmission of information in writing. And written communication needs to be precise and explicit. And I think, made those two words bold, precise and explicit, simply because people in sport are very, very busy. They don't have a lot of time to read through long explanations and discussions. They just want you to get to the point. Furthermore, when we talk about precise and explicit writing, we mean you need to choose concise vocabulary that cannot be misunderstood. So the words that you choose need to be formal, they need to be concise, they need to be words that are explicit. Okay, I don't mean, no under 18, triple X or whatever, no. By explicit, what I mean is the word must say exactly what it means so that the person reading it does not misunderstand it. I'm trying to think of an example. For example, if I say, well, the game last week was very interesting and there was a throwdown. What do I mean by a throwdown? It could mean anything. It could mean there was a fight. It could mean that there was a clear winner. It could mean that there was a party, anything. So you need to use more explicit word choices in that context. Effective written communication develops and enhances an organization's image. That's why I said written communication is very, very important. How you send out your emails is important. Once upon a time, I received an email where somebody wrote the entire message in that title box. I didn't even bother to read it. I was just so frustrated because it's not like they had never done communication studies before. They had complete communication studies, and yet they chose to do that. So no, you need to be very, very careful. Also, in a formal context, you cannot use emojis, you cannot use emoticons. You need to avoid jokes and language that can be insulting, depending on the person that's receiving that email. Remember, written communication remains as a record and reference, so it can be used against you. And there we go. Legal defenses can depend upon written communication as it provides valid records. So as your lecturer, I would advise you to try and always have a written record of something. If you want to ask me something, send me an email. I will reply to you by email. If you're unhappy, you can always refer back to that email and say, but look, doc, this is what you said. And then I have no choice but to give you your 20 marks or whatever. So what are some examples of written communication? I think I've already given you quite a few. Emails. I can think of periodicals, newspapers, magazines, sport journals, academic writings, etc., etc. Maybe you can think of a few more. I don't know what you have. Maybe your organization publishes something as well that would be interesting. Pamphlets maybe could also be included as some form of written communication. Now, let's look at active and passive listening, and we're going to delve a little bit deeper into this. What is active listening? I cannot see you now. I don't know if you are listening to me actively or passively, but if you were listening to me actively, and I was able to see you, I would be able to see who's listening actively by your body language. You see your body language, like nodding, making eye contact, responding with a smile, laughing where appropriate. Hand gestures would tell me if you were listening or not listening. Also, I would see by the feedback and the questions, you would respond to me. I've been talking to myself for a long time. It's tiring, it's exhausting. But if somebody's listening to you actively, then you know that that person is able to understand what you are saying. And then a passive listener, on the other hand, is somebody who just sits there and doesn't respond while you speak. They don't give any feedback. They're probably just thinking about something else in that time, and I'm talking into their sleep, maybe. And maybe they're just, concentrating on something else. So active and passive listening are two very different activities, and yet they are both a form of communication. So we're going to do an exercise on this, and we will get to it at the end of this lecture. We'll get there. All right, so effective interpersonal communication skills. What kind of skills do you need? You need to be a very good listener. You need to practice active listening. You need to be flexible. You need to be able to adapt to new technology. Old technology, if they prefer to use old technology, like you can receive snail mail from somebody rather than an email. Some people still use memos to communicate in the office. Sometimes you need to be patient because some people don't know how to practice these good communication skills, and some people might not have good writing skills. You need to be able to kind of interpret what they're trying to say to you. You need to have empathy. Now, there's a difference between empathy and sympathy, and I'm sure a lot of you can tell me a little bit better. But to my understanding, empathy is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. So try and see from their shoes, what was this person thinking? Did they have enough time to formulate this message? Maybe they didn't. Maybe they don't even have an office to work out of. Also, you need to be able to take responsibility for your actions and your words in particular as a communication practitioner. And you have to be able to identify trouble before trouble hits and have good problem solving skills. So what are the elements of interpersonal communication? We've talked about this time and again, and I already said that model in lecture 2 is one model that we will keep going back to again and again and again. So we have that sender, which is the person or the source of the communication. We have the receiver, who's receiving the information and also gives feedback. And there is that encoding and decoding. Remember, we said that the sender encodes the message by choosing what type of transmission to use, how to communicate that information, whether it's a picture or words or song or sound or a signal. And then they need to identify the medium, how they're going to send that communication across. Are they going to leave a message? Are they going to record the lecture? Are they going to give you a phone call? Are they going to put it on WhatsApp? That's the medium that they will send it through. Interference, that's the noise that we talked about at length. And then the feedback is the response that you get after listening actively. So communication within a sport organization can take 3 main forms. It could be management communication, which is management communicating to lower management to the employees, and vice versa. And I think we spoke about that a little bit earlier in lecture 2 with marketing communication, which we will get to a little bit later, and organizational communication, which we have already covered. So what forms of communication do you use in your organizations? In my organization, we use a lot of emails and we also use a lot of social media. We use WhatsApp quite a lot. Okay, some organizations, as we've said, still use memos, some love meetings, some have presentations, and some maybe do different things like workshops and conferences and webinars and so on. Okay, so what are some of the features that affect communication decisions in an organization? As we've already said before, the mission and the vision of the organization determine the strategic planning of communication, which is quite important, but also the organizational culture determines how the communication is going to be handled in the organization. So if the organizational culture is that you have to run everything through your direct manager or your line manager, then that is the type of communication that we'll use. Okay, two-way communication, the manager will bring you the instruction, you bring feedback constantly like that. Or maybe you have a flat structure where you just work autonomously and only give a report at the end of it all. Depends on the organizational culture. The language used in the organization is very, very important. Do you choose to use the same language? Do you use different languages? Is there a lot of diversity that you need to communicate in a common language, or identify other means of communication? Do you need translators in the company or in the organization? What are some effective communication methods that you use to engage everybody within that system? So we're going to take a deeper look at those 3 communication skills: listening, reading, and writing. And I'm not going to take a lot of time with this because we actually have been doing it. Okay, so for your listening skills, we are going to complete the listening practice exercise, which is attached. There is a video that has been sent to the group along with a set of questions that you need to complete. The due date, I have extended a little bit and I've given you until the 10th, which is the last day of this course, to complete this listening exercise. Listen, it's very short, it goes quickly, and you don't even have to think. You're just answering from things that you can literally see. And the writing, okay, the writing practice is in your individual assignment 1. The reading practice is in your assignment 2, which is just critical analysis. Okay, I would like you to submit at least one annotated article with that assignment. So you will critically read and analyze 20 articles and complete the table. Okay, the summary will only contain 200 to 250 words, which is very, very short. And then you will supply me with one annotated article. You can annotate on PDF, or if you are not comfortable annotating online, you can print, highlight, and then scan and send it back. Right, so we are done. Another very, very short session. I will make sure that all assignments and notes have been posted in the WhatsApp group so that you don't struggle to find anything. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very much.